The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv.
6 days until Thanksgiving.
6 days until we eat the bird.
Yep. And as long as you don't give the bird, we'll be fine.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of birds to be given out. But yeah, we should have like a bird contest.
I know, really.
But yeah, so it's...
We got 2 more shows next week.
Yeah.
And then we're off for a couple of days because we won't have a show on Friday.
Yeah.
Because of the holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't be back until Monday after that.
That's right.
So
we got a few days off.
Got a few days off.
That's right.
So I don't know if you're going to go shopping or not, but I'm not.
I don't do shopping anymore. I haven't done shopping in a long time.
Yeah.
It's you know,
Well, and you know, the thing is there's not a lot of stores around. Inflation is outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at a PlayStation 5, and from Sony Direct, it's $559, but they're always out of stock.
Mm-hmm.
From Walmart, it was $804.
Jeez.
So, and I'm not a gamer, so this was going to be a gift for somebody. And I said, "The hell with that! I'm not buying that. You know,
right.
I'm not going to pay a 2.5 markup on something like that. It's just not worth it to me. It's just
it's going to be a major problem, the holidays with inflation and stuff like that. I guess the only place we don't realize that is Fall River because nobody cares about affordable housing, people not being able to buy this stuff. But I just saw a TV show. Yes.
Speaking of that, guess who's building affordable housing?
Who?
Walt Disney World.
Well, I mean, you know, Walt Disney World, Wokey World. Yeah, and they're doing it. But look.
3,000 units.
Well, look, the entire country has recognized this problem, except for Fall River.
Right.
We are unique. This is like an alternate universe. It's like Star Wars. We don't notice anything. I mean, we got 8 units. No, we need companies to come in and build. You know, a lot of this community needs it more than other communities. The communities that are fairly affluent, because the middle class with this inflation is being killed. Just saw the show this morning about Christmas. The industry thinks they're in big trouble because obviously, it doesn't affect me because, a long time ago I used to go do the route of buying all kinds of presents for my granddaughter and stuff and, exchange gifts with my kids. But, after a while, it got to the point where they're giving me a gift certificate to a restaurant, and I'm giving them back the same gift certificate to the restaurant. I said, why bother?
Yeah, re-gifting, huh?
That's it. They give me a gift certificate, and then I give them a gift certificate. So you just keep that money you bought me a gift certificate and go out, and I'll keep that money, and I'll go out myself. So
and one of the things, back to the Disney affordable housing, 3,000 units, you wouldn't think that Orlando needs affordable housing. It's a high-end tourist community, and you get a different view of this.
Yeah. Well,
I worked in Orlando. I worked at Florida Hospital South, and I can tell you, we saw a lot of poor people in Orlando. There was a lot. I mean, Polk County, which is just outside of Orlando, was dirt poor. People lived in trailers. It was true trailer park trash, and I say that because I saw a couple of the trailers and they weren't exactly clean. Yeah. And there was various forms of vermin.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the tenants.
Even armadillos in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. But you wouldn't think that Orlando would need, especially Reedy Creek, which is a Disney community. You wouldn't think that they need that much affordable housing.
Yeah. Well,
but a city like Fall River, you would think 3,000 units would go a long way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But see, that's the big con they've run on people. The tourism industry. Oh, the tourism industry.
Miami.
Miami. Yep. Not only Miami, Orlando, as you said.
Tampa.
And I'm going to tell you another place, Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You think, Las Vegas is, I mean, that's the Mecca. The Mecca. And I go to Las Vegas a lot, but I'll tell you what, there are some real poor neighborhoods in North Las Vegas. There are a lot of poverty in that area.
Well, it used to
See,
be that way in
tourism
New York
is
City.
a very unique thing. It brings a lot of money to a very narrow band of people. It
Right.
does. It's not pushed over to the community. As a matter of fact, the greatest example of that was Atlantic City.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Because
say.
if you went to Atlantic City and you walked the strip along the casino, well, that's beautiful. You walk out and go a block over, abject poverty,
Yep.
and that was the classic example. Because what they said is, Atlantic City gambling brought billions of dollars to the state of New Jersey, but it wasn't reinvested in the community.
Right.
The money men and the politicians took care of themselves. And this is the problem with, anytime people talk about tourism, it's like they're kicking me and waking me up, because it disturbs me, because I know that's BS. Tourism does not fix a community, especially low-income communities, because another place that's unbelievably poor is Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
You go to Honolulu,
And it's expensive.
it's expensive and it's beautiful. And get in a car and drive out of Honolulu and start looking at the tin shacks they live in on the outskirts, and they got a very high drug problem
Right.
in Hawaii. See, all these things, it reminds me of that. It reminds me of that song by Bette Midler, From a Distance. Everything looks beautiful from
yeah.
the sky. You don't see the reality. You go to these tourist meccas, it's nice. And you think, wow, this city must be really, really affluent. And the reality is, most of the time, it's the exact opposite. Now you get a city like Fall River, and nobody cares about housing, but it's a nationwide, and that's the other kind. Oh, what do you expect me to do about it? It's a nationwide problem. Well, why don't you do what some of the rest of the places in the nation are doing? Like, there's a plan in New Bedford. Where's your plan? Recognize it. If you have a dependency on something, what's the first step to curing yourself? Recognizing that you have a problem.
That's right.
Well, we have a problem, and 8 units and working with the developers who are making money is not going to cut it.
And 3 units doesn't cut it, because one of the projects on Alden Street,
Yeah.
they had, I've spoken about this before, they had a big lottery, because all these affordable units are given by lottery.
Yeah.
You don't just apply and get it. You become part of the lottery.
Yeah.
And there's thousands of people.
And who knows
who
if that
apply for these-
lottery isn't fixed?
Well, you never know.
Yeah, like some bidding processes.
Yeah.
We've seen some bidding
Right.
processes. But, this is the con of the politicians. This is the con. You look at now in the national scene. Oh, the Democrats are all up in arms. They're going to, the Republicans are going to investigate. They spent the last 2 years going up Trump with a stethoscope up his butt, and it's like, they continue to. These people. It's like, oh, that's the pharmacy. Look at this. Stop it. And but it's a political game, and the reality is the people suffer. You need somebody to actually look at the public and say, I'm going to help them. Look, I just saw there's an article, somebody sent it to me about the fire down there, and they were talking about fire apparatus and stuff like that. And this is, again, the spinology. We saw what they're doing with these, moving the apparatus around, moving ambulances around. It's not the right thing to do. It is jeopardizing public safety, and they're using the 1710 standard as a con. And we know that, number one, fire trucks don't put out fires. It's nice to have new fire trucks, but we fought probably the biggest fire in the history of this city, and it without a doubt. It was the only conflagration in the history. I fought Notre Dame fire. I was there for 28 hours. We had apparatus that were 20 years old and had been refurbished. Fire trucks don't put out fires. Firefighters put out fires. It's nice to have new trucks, but the fact is that it's about maintaining the staffing. Yet, What's the first thing politicians attack when they're trying to get a 2.5 override, or they're trying to get more money out of the people? We're going to lay off fire and police.
Yep.
So there's the hypocrisy of this whole thing, that these people are nothing more than hypocrites. Now they're going to crow about fire trucks. Oh, we're going to earmark $2.5 million for fire trucks, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Oh, it's wonderful. Shiny fire trucks. Cut the ribbon. Take a picture. Photo op. That, without personnel on that truck,
It's useless.
it's not putting out anything.
That's right.
It's the firefighters on the end of the lines. It's the
And we
firefighters
just-
chopping holes in the roof.
And the city just
Son of
did
a
a
Bitch, these people. are pissed.
they just did a 108 loan, I guess they're called, a 108 loan, which is low interest loan to get safety equipment. So,
I hate shutting this thing off because it's a tiny little button. It
Yep.
drives me crazy, but it's off now. Okay.
and the city council basically didn't even look it over. They just blanketly approved it because, again, it's for safety equipment, which sometimes I think is the wrong thing to do. I think you really need to look at what you're getting, not just getting the equipment, but look at the equipment you're getting. How much is it actually costing us? What is it? Where can we use it? Because again, the 108 loan is like a CDA loan, I guess. So now you can only use that in certain parts of the city.
Yeah. It's obviously, but like you said, see, this is the problem. Politicians are politicians.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really statesmen. They're not concerned about, yet they do things for optics. Like you said, the reality is that, look, I'm not saying, fine. Nobody likes to, they should invest in this stuff. But this goes to the symptom of a greater problem. They never demand transparency.
Right.
You see, if we're going to get this, where is a presentation to the council saying this is why it's used, this is what it's used for, this is why we need it, this is what it's done, this is what it does nationally, this is what, this, if these councilors were truly concerned, they would bring in people and ask them questions. It's
Right.
like, no, they're going to have a public safety meeting. And the public safety meeting it's after the fact. They're going to do this anyway. And they're going to start crowing about the 1710 standard. You can get there in 5 minutes or 5 minutes and 50 seconds. But that's BS. That's a lie. Because as a nursing professional, and I know as a guy who fought fires in the city for 38 and a half years, 25 of them as a chief in charge of a fire, that it's not, that's a con. You're within the standard. Maybe you won't get sued. But and I know that could cost lives.
That's
The
right.
reality is that on a fire ground, if you don't get a task force there, you can't do everything you need to do to begin to fight that fire properly.
Right.
Because you need a pump, you need the pump to be backed up so you don't run out of water. You need a ladder truck to begin ventilation. You need trucks and manpower there together to begin an operation. And if you don't have that, you cannot send people in. The conditions will not, and that means more property damage, more life safety hazard, because you can't go in and effect a rescue if you don't have people there. You're supposed to have a RIT team, and all these things that are all part of a fire operation, and there's nothing. And I can tell you from personal experience, see, this isn't theoretical with me. I stood in front of buildings with people hanging out windows and people inside buildings that we had to rescue. And there's nothing more frustrating as a fire ground commander than knowing that you could have been in there already, but you got to wait for that truck to come from another place. Is it unavoidable sometime? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You put a truck at Candeas and that thing's out on a run, you're going to have to wait for that other one.
That's right.
But there's no excuse for removing that, because if that truck is sitting at the central station or that rescue ambulance, and you know what happens with
Oh, yeah.
cardiac arrest,
Yep.
the brain dies.
Yep.
Now, if you take that from there, and it could have been there. It should have been there. And now you stick it down on Troy Street, and it's got to come and hit Bedford and Drive, and it gets there a minute and a half later than it would have if it was in the South End to a South End residence. The reality is that that minute and a half could have caused, it will cause more property damage from a firefighting aspect and possibly a life hazard. But if you initiate CPR 2 minutes later, you could kill somebody or be permanently brain damaged.
Right.
You know, and they can't, and anybody, I don't care if they're EMS or firefighter, cannot get up there and say that that isn't a fact, because I've got thousands of pages of fire propagation curves. I read that on the show the other, you know, and about the brain dead, and you know that better than anybody else. So you're not going to tell me that taking that thing from Candace and moving it to the center, because I'll tell you what, take that at 5 different times during the day and try to get up Plymouth Avenue to where Candace is from the central station.
I know that because I travel there all the time.
Yeah, and try to do that and tell me you're not going to lose a minute or 2 minutes. And that 2 minutes is brain dead, because we know that if the brain is deprived of oxygen for 3 minutes, you're dead.
You know, and the worst part about it is I've seen the ambulance responding from Candace.
Yeah.
Lights, sirens, and they've now got the automatic light changers, you know, and still people don't get out of the way.
Yeah.
People don't move. Yeah. They'll sit there and go, well, let him move. Get out of the way. When an emergency vehicle approaches, you're supposed to pull off to the right.
Yeah.
That's a law.
Yeah.
And nobody does it.
Yeah. Well, you know, you run into that all the time. I remember one time I was coming back from dropping off reports, and I'm heading back to the South End because I was at Candace for a while in the Globe. That's where the South End Chiefs were. And we were on 12th Street in Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, and traffic was all backed up. So we weren't going anywhere, so we're stopped in traffic. All of a sudden we get an alarm. Oh, turn on the lights, nobody can go anywhere. Traffic's going up Pleasant. They can't get out. They're not going to climb the sidewalks.
Right.
We're moving an inch at a time as they're trying to drive up on the sidewalks and stuff like that, and we're weaving through. I mean, we were delayed 35, 45 seconds, you know, just to get to the intersection.
Right.
And you know, this is absurd when they try to say, well, it's within the standard. Yeah, you're within the standard, but for a professional, someone who is supposed to be a fire professional or an EMS professional, to not know in their heart of hearts that taking that truck and moving it from where it used to be, it will cost a life at some point in time. And how can you reconcile that in yourself? Because I know that, and as I said, is it unavoidable that there is a delay sometime? Yeah. If that ambulance is out on another run, it's going to have to come from another place. But what happens the day that ambulance is sitting down in the central station and an alarm comes in on Warren Street, right around the corner from Candace, and they get there a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, and somebody's brain dead.
Right.
Or dead.
Right.
You know? And because if you don't know that you could have got there because you weren't on a run, you were sitting in the station.
That's right.
That's the reason they put them that way.
Developing the camaraderie.
Because if you open up the NFPA handbook, it says, and we all know that as professional firefighters,
right,
that we cannot have a fire department based on a worst case scenario. So we can't have a 900-man fire department in Fall River because assuming that we're going to have a Notre Dame or a Kerr Mill fire every week, or a 5-alarm fire down at, the mall.
Right.
what you have to do is find that medium where you're giving them, based on your fire, you know, the runs you've got to try to say, okay, well, like Solomon, try to get enough, not underman it, but you've got to man it for, you know, to be able to handle what you can consider a couple of fires simultaneously. You can't, like it's like police, you can't have a cop on every corner. You'd like to have a cop, but you can't afford it.
Right.
So, but this thing is, you know, this thing was structured to put ambulances in different neighborhoods to give them a better running time, because those seconds are critical, absolutely critical. And then for these people to get up there and start using a standard in general, oh, yeah, well, it's within the standard. You know, I can see Seth Akins doing that, because like I said, he doesn't know safety from a post hole. He was not doing this job.
Right.
But like I said, for these people to sign off on this, you know, I'm very disappointed, because I'll tell you what, I have been at literally hundreds of fires, and there's nothing more frustrating as a fire ground commander, as an incident commander, to wait for a truck so you can do something to stop that property loss, because you cannot do it without sufficient, you can't execute the tactics needed unless you've got the equipment. And like I said, the analogy of starting a football game, their analogy is we'll start the football game with 4 players and the other team will have 11. Well, and the rest of them will get there within the parameter of the game.
Right.
Well, you're never going to win that game.
Yep.
Well, safety is about seconds, not, you know, and using that general guideline is saying, well, we're still within tolerance. We're dealing with human lives here. We're dealing with people. It shows that these people really, you know, they're insensitive to this fact. Because I can tell you, if you pin one of these people down and say, you're going to tell me that a minute doesn't make any difference in a medical or a fire situation, if they do, I'll tell you what, I'll show up with 2,000 pages of proper fire propagation thing, because I made a presentation on a 17-cent standard years ago.
I'll show up with a YouTube video.
Yeah, and that's it. And like I said, but this is crazy, and this is the track the city's going down. You know, it's all, with Paul Coogan, it's all optics. Mm-hmm. It's all optics. Oh, I'm doing this, oh, morale. We're talking about life safety. I don't care if, you know, we want people on the scene as quickly as possible. Not, well, they're going to get there within a minute or two anyway. No, a minute or two. Like I said, your aunt was a classic example. If I had one truck that was out on another run in the South End that night, and like I said, it was 2 blocks away from the Globe Station, and I had an engine company, the ladder company, and Engine 4 got there simultaneously because they just come down Plymouth Avenue. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have those 3 trucks there to begin that operation, your aunt would have been dead.
Yeah.
And if we were coming from the center, she would have been dead before we got there.
Yeah. Yep. And so would those babies.
And we would have been in tolerance.
Yep. And so would those babies.
That's right.
Yep. And you're right. You're within the standard. But the standard is just that. It's a standard. It's a median.
Yeah.
It's not the law. It's the median. You have to adjust those medians according to what your situation is. And I mean, the standards say that there's supposed to be 5 people on an engine. Yeah, in a high value district.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have 5 people on our engines?
No, we never did. But that's the optimum. Actually, there's part of that standard. It tells you that, in some of the statistics I brought, are the efficiency of a 3-man company, a 4-man company, and a 5-man company. Right. 5-man company has 100% efficiency to lay particular lines and do particular evolutions in a specific time. And you know, as you said, these parameters are generalizations, but we have a moral obligation to the people of this community to provide them with the best we can. And you, as a nursing professional, how many times were you in a medical situation where you saw somebody come in and say, if we would have got this person in here 2 minutes ago, we might have saved them?
That's more than once.
Yeah.
More than once, that's for sure.
And that's a travesty.
Yep,
really.
it is. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
As many of you may have heard, there's a program, an event coming up in December called Winter Wonderland. Now, from what I understand, and I may be wrong, so I don't quote me on being positive about it, they were supposed to provide their own security for their displays. Because the city's not going to provide it, obviously. It's going to cost too much money.
Unless it's the feast.
Unless it's the feast, yeah.
Okay.
And they started putting up their decorations and their lights. And I guess somebody went there and destroyed them or vandalized them.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Okay.
I got a call on that too.
Now, if you're supposed to be providing the security, why wasn't some security provided? And then somebody said to me, well, I think they said they were only going to provide the security during the event. Well, the trick is getting up to that event. Now, the worst part about it is I had a conversation with the member of a park board, and I said very clearly, I said, it's great that you approved this, and it's wonderful that they want to do this, but I'm going to tell you now, when they stop putting this stuff up, it's going to be damaged. It's going to be vandalized. The graffiti people are going to come out. I hate to be right again, but you know,
well,
this is what happens.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
And
but this is what happens. And this group, I mean, they've been trying to raise money. They had a spaghetti dinner. They're doing other things to make this happen. And I'm not against it. And, you know, I've been told I'm against it and I'm negative and that. No, I'm not. I knew what was going to happen. And you normally know what's going to happen, and we say it on this show, and people say, you're so negative. But then when it happens, they don't say, oh, you know, you saw it coming, you were right. No, they don't, because we're negative.
Well, yeah, and what is this, CJ? It's a symptom of the problem.
Right.
It's a symptom of the malaise that we have in this community about these things. We have a mayor that has this blasé, cavalier attitude about everything. We had a couple of shootings. I'm not going to call her. I'm not going to tell the people what I'm going to do. I'm not going to send a message to the people of Forward. We have zero tolerance for these things, and we are going to aggressively address this stuff. We're not going to tell them about anything. We don't have a plan for anything. We just go along. Don't worry about it. They'll forget about it in a day or two till the next shooting or the next stabbing or the next incidence of graffiti or the next rape in the school or something like this. You know, this is the problem. There's, you know, the city is like a ship lost at sea. We're just floating around. Nobody has any idea of what's going on with crime, what's being done to address this horrific educational underachievement, and a whole myriad of other issues. What are we doing? Where's the coordinated effort? There's nothing. That's what a leader is supposed to do. A leader is supposed to say, listen, this is the plan. It's not going to happen overnight, but we got a plan. And we're going to send a message that we're working on this, and we're going to bring this thing under control. And 3 years, I want to have somebody point to one thing that our mayor has ever got out in front of.
Right. And you can't just blame the mayor. I mean, the mayor's the head of the ship, and he's the one to blame. But Brad Kilby is he's the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Yeah. He's having a meeting about the ambulances being moved, but he's not addressing the ATV issue. He's still not addressing the ATV issue. And people have a problem with that. And people have said on social media, what is wrong with him not addressing at that same meeting the ATV issue? Maybe because he doesn't want to have a long meeting. I don't know. But that is an issue in Fall River too, that we need to address. And it's just not going to happen overnight. And unless these city councilors start listening to us and start representing us, the people, things aren't going to change.
You're right.
Things aren't going to change. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. Have a great weekend, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday.